Hey, is everyone still here?
Yeah.
We're in the call. Welcome to Seeing Things Differently.
Loymus across the pond.
With Kay and Cleves.
And Angie and Kimberly. Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Seeing Things Differently, Blindness Across the Pond. If you notice a difference, we are actually recording on our platform. This is what blind looks like. And so the guys from Seesaw Podcast are joining us today, hence why we are going to be on our best behavior.
We'll try.
So today's episode will be on finding jobs and working as blind people and what is out there to help us blind people or people with disabilities find jobs and be able to work. We're going to talk about the programs that each country has to offer and things of that nature. So let's get into it.
Sounds good. What I'm interested to hear is sort of if there's any schemes over in the US to help just people in general get into work, or specific schemes like tailored to the visually impaired, blind community, especially if you guys have had experience of them.
Absolutely. So I know that we work with VR counselors. So they're a lot of people know them as VR. So they stand for like voc rehab counselors. So vocational of rehabilitation. These agencies, like they're in every state, and they help people with disabilities look for jobs, and they help them with school and help them get assistive technology and stuff like that. Though in some states, like Minnesota, they have blind services, which kind of separate blind people and other people with disabilities. So like the counselors that work with blind people solely work with blind people and helping them find jobs or helping them with school, helping them get assistive technology for work or school and things like that.
Yes, one thing that is difficult with voc rehab in our state, I don't know if this is true in other states, but they also work with anyone who wants a job. And so anyone can walk in on the street and be like, hey, I want to need help finding a job. So they can help. We're priority. And then there's others who work with them.
Yep.
So there's a long list of people who work with them, which is hard because DVR counselors are stretched to the max. And I think that there should be a separate program for just anyone who wants a job, because at this time, pretty much everyone needs one. So
that's
difficult.
I definitely agree. I wish that we had something like Minnesota or like places that have what they call commission for the blind. I wish that we had something like that kind of separated us, so that way we can get what we need, instead of having to wait to have our needs met. You know what I mean?
And we might be the only blind person that they work with. So
exactly,
they're really unfamiliar with fulfilling our needs. And they're mostly asking us how to do things, or us where to get things. It's like, that's your job.
Yeah, like I understand that they might work with people with other disabilities too, but a lot of them don't understand blindness. And they don't know how to cater to what we need. So, for example, it could be adjustment to blindness training. Somebody might want to go to a training center to get blindness skills. And that counselor might just be like, well, I don't know how it pertains to work. And they'll refuse to send them because of that.
Is that scheme like run by the government? Do they have to do they sign that sort of stuff off?
Yeah, it's a state thing. And it's mostly, if it's not within Wisconsin, we can't support that.
Also, so if it's out of state,
Also with me trying to get equipment like braille displays and like magnifiers and stuff, they'll be like, they'll have to sit and look during the meeting. well, what about this place? What about that place? And it's like, why are you asking me this? Like, they don't know where to search. Oh, do you know, I've had counselors where they're like, oh, is there a place that you know of that I can get this? It's like,
yup,
do your job. Like,
exactly. Exactly. I've had people ask me that. My counselor, for example, it made me so angry because she's like, your reading speed isn't good enough for a Braille display.
You should have faked it.
I got so angry.
Slow down a
Braille
little bit.
displays are better than paper. Reading Braille on paper.
Yeah, how do you expect
reading Braille on paper, like books, everything's like crunched up, and with the Braille display, you can read line by line, and it's more pronounced and stuff.
Yep, exactly. Like, how do you expect me to get better if I can't practice? And besides, where in their handbook does it say that a blind person needs to have an X number of like reading speed to qualify for a display? Mm-hmm. It's stupid. That's what it is.
It sounds like money, to be honest. It sounds like
yeah,
so little money.
Yeah, they go with the cheapest route. They have to.
Yeah, if they can, they'll try to go with the cheapest route.
Yeah, but that's so bad because
it is.
If you're not working, then the state supports you. But if you are working, you pay the state. So making that investment early, it's in their best interest to get vision impaired and we'll get everyone into work. Because then you're paying your taxes instead of like the state giving you money to live. Like you're giving them money, which is backwards. Just make the investment. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they don't know where. Like Angie said, it's like that's not a rule, and then we have to write a letter of justification and try to prove why we need it, and even then they can deny it.
Yeah, and I wrote a good justification letter too.
That's mad.
Frustrating. It's really sad. Like
another thing,
like a Braille display company just sponsor me so I can get my display.
right. Another thing that's wrong with DVR, I'll just finish off with this. They don't support piecework, and that means like anything that you like, for instance, there are places in Wisconsin, pretty much Milwaukee, I should say, that have businesses that hire blind people that make like assemble things, but they don't support that because for the state, they don't feel that that's a career. And so I've had to justify with Braille transcription that because they're like, oh, on this website, it says it's piecework, that you'll only get piecework. Well, that's one of the many types of work you can get, because for me, piecework would be if I were to go to a restaurant and say, hey, if you pay me, I can Braille your menu, and then you can get, the word will spread and you can get more people coming to your restaurant. Well, that's touch and go. You can't, that's not a full-time job, so we can't support that. Things like that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How does it work in the US then? Do you have to go to like these people every so often to check it? Like, in the UK, you basically have to sign up to this thing called the Job Centre.
Yeah.
Job Centre Plus now. And you basically have to visit there like every 2 weeks just to make sure. Is it every week?
No. Every week now.
You just to make sure you get your benefits. You have to see like an officer and you have to speak to them about the jobs that you've looked for and that sort of thing. Do you have to do anything like that in the US?
Yeah, you can actually like have a job coach that can help you get a job when you're to that point. And you have to see them very frequently, and you have to do your homework and try to apply to jobs outside of seeing them. But with DVR counselors that you see before you get in the job finding phase, that's not that often. But you have to check in with them monthly. And if you don't check in with them for a certain amount of time, I think it's like 6 months, maybe more, they automatically drop your case.
That's brutal.
It is. It is so just brutal. And to think about it, the place where we go and see our voc rehab counselor, it's called the Job Center too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the whole scheme in England is you get universal job credit. It's basically unemployment benefit, obviously, when you're not employed. And then each week you have to go to these job centres and you basically have to talk. Yeah, I think you have to apply for X amount of jobs. You have to write them all
5.
down. Is it 5 a week?
5 a week, 5 unique
Oh my
jobs
God.
a week.
Wow.
You have to write down whether you've applied to, how you applied.
Contact info.
Yeah.
Like, you need to provide a phone number or an email address because otherwise people make it up. So you have to tell them.
Oh,
And they will do random checks and they'll phone up, say, I don't know, Joe's Pizzeria and say, did Cleves apply for a job with you? And if they turn around and say, no, we have no application for someone named Cleves, benefits are gone. You get blacklisted for like 3 months.
Wow.
And they're like, nope.
That is
Oh.
crazy.
that is so much work.
Yeah, that is worse than here because, like, yeah, we work with a job developer and stuff like that. And they'll be like, okay, like, they'll help you look for jobs and stuff. And they'll be like, do you want us to send your resume? Like, do you want me to send your resume or do you want to do it? Or let me know if you applied and, you know, we can check back with them for it, you know, and stuff like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that are you talking like benefits like your monetary benefits or like benefits such as like they stop working?
Like monetary. So in the UK, there's a thing. It used to be called job seekers allowance. Now it's called universal credits, and that's something that you get if you're. It's a system that based on what your circumstances are, you get X amount of money each week, and it's not that much. But it also means that the local council, will pay your rent. And they will pay your council tax, which is you have to pay.
Dude, that's nifty.
So
that is sweet.
Take
like,
that.
yeah,
I know. Wow. Like, I know in Minnesota, for example, your state services for the blind counselor, like if you're a student and you're living on campus, like they'll help you with rent. Like if you are living in an apartment or, you know, I know that because I have a friend who, you know, lives in Minnesota. And so she told me something like that. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, well, they don't help you with all of it, but like part of it, you know?
Yeah, it depends. There's a lot of things that go into it. I won't go into it too much detail here, but there are a lot of restrictions on what you can and can't do. But if you've got like a 1-bedroom apartment and you're not working, the local council will pay your rent and your council tax, and then you'll get, it's usually around £100 a week, which would be $150. But as I said, if you don't do your 5 applications a week, if you don't show up to your meeting, and if you lie on your form, they will take all of this away from you. And then before you know it, you're begging to not be evicted. You don't have money to eat. It's all or nothing. It's 100% all or nothing.
Wow. Damn. So they're like, the UK, like they're not playing. Like they're just like, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, and this to keep your like benefits. Otherwise, bye.
Yep.
Okay, I take that back.
They play no games.
I don't want that.
The UK, they play no games. Oh God.
To be fair, like they are supposed to be the advisor that you go to see each week. They're supposed to be there to help you find work, but they don't really. It's you show them the list, and then they'll look at your like your resume, your CV, as we call it, and they'll look at that and they'll go, "Have you thought about doing this?" That's all they'll say. Have you thought about doing this?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And then they'll send you away. They sign on their computer that you've shown up. And you come back next week, but there's no active help. I mean, you can get. Cleves hasn't really got much experience of the job centre.
I haven't been in quite a while, to be fair.
Not as much as I have over my life. But once upon a time, I went to the job centre and they had a disability specialist, they called it. And I went to my appointment and I sat down. I had my suit on and I had my CV, my resume.
Went to the job centre in a suit?
I thought it was an important meeting.
You must have looked like the poshest person there.
Hell yeah!
Everyone else looks like they've wandered in off the streets.
A lot of them have.
Like, no, like that's honestly, he did it right. Like, go in there with like your best dress, like, you know, suit on or outfit or whatever. Because then that way they'll know, like, oh, like he means business.
Yeah,
he wants a job.
Everyone else that
Like,
was there in the job
she
center
really
was
wants to
looking
get
at
that
him
job.
thinking, we're going to rob him.
You know what's hilarious? With your accent, I thought you said I go in there with my shoes on. And I was thinking, I was like, so is it common that people don't come in with shoes?
No, I
It's only the Japanese
knew.
job centers you have to take your shoes off.
I was like, that makes no sense.
like I knew that he meant suits because just wait.
I
don't know.
I knew I was listening. I knew I heard him wrong. So it's like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then when you said
Yeah.
suit a second time, I was like, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, like I was just gonna say, like, damn straight, I am gonna like wear my best outfit. Give me the dress, give me the flats, or give me like a nice slacks and shirt and blazer. I will show you that I really want this job. Like, I'm not gonna play.
I know that's what I did. And Cleves was laughing there because usually when you go to the job centre, it's a lot of people in hoodies and like sportswear, drinking energy drinks. That's the people that you see there.
You seriously,
Most
they're
of the
not going
people
to
in
take
the
you
job
seriously.
center, most of the people in the job center already have a job, and it's drug dealer.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Okay, so the fashionista in me and me being sophisticated. What color was your suit? Gray.
Great.
Oh,
okay,
nice. Yeah, I was gonna guess gray or black. Did you have like a matching hat to wear with it?
Nah.
Like a bowler
Like
hat.
a little
British man.
like a little fedora, you know?
Yeah. I also had my pocket hanky as well, so I could sort of dab my head if it got a bit too intense for me. Just, oh gosh. No hats. I do have a lot of hats, but I didn't wear one that day.
Okay, I don't know why I pictured you with like a little fedora or not a top hat. Okay, not a top hat. That's
hilarious.
A little too much.
That'd be hilarious.
You're like the typical like British gentleman, like, hello, I'm here for a job.
And a cane as well.
Yeah,
my
and like
cane.
a little briefcase.
Well, anyway, I was wearing my top suit, and I got there to this disability specialist. I sat down, and she just gave me a confused look because I was dressed.
Oh no!
I was dressed smart. I was like, we just started chatting, and I just said, okay, so you're the disability specialist. So how are we going to do this? Like, do you have connections, or how are you going to do this? And then she just looked at me and just said, what, you actually want a job? I was like,
What?
well, yeah, you're the disability specialist at the job centre. I've come to you because specialists help for finding work. He was just like, no, I just help disabled people get as much money out of the government as possible. So I don't help people find work. So if you want to find work, I can't help you. And I just walked away. I walked away. I was like, okay, thanks. I'm walking away then. Like, you're wasting my time.
I put on this suit and everything. Like,
Yeah.
Put your shoes on.
oh man,
Come on, man.
Yeah, it wasn't an enjoyable experience, and I had to go to the job centre a fair amount when I was younger, but not in a long time. Not in a long time, luckily. I know it's changed a lot now. I know there's other things that happen there, like training schemes and things like that, but I don't really know much detail about that.
Did you know
Maybe
to a job
longer.
centre
Wow.
when you moved here?
No.
What did you do for
When
money?
I moved, because I had savings, and I found work within 2 weeks.
La-dee-da.
That is the fastest I've ever found work. Yeah, lucky when I came to Nottingham and I lived with Cleves. But within 2 weeks, I was like, okay, apply for jobs. I think I must have applied for around 50 jobs in 10 days. Because I just wanted work. I was just like, every job I was going for. And then went to an interview and they're like, sure, okay. It's like, great. I'll start immediately. And I was lucky.
That's awesome. See, like that's the route that I was trying to go to. Like, I don't want to work, like I don't want to just work with a job developer because I didn't want to at first, right? Because I was just like, I'm going to apply and see if like anybody takes me, then I could just tell my VR counselor, hey, look, I got a job. I need equipment, but I got a job.
Yeah.
But nope, I need to.
It'll happen. Or we get sponsors. I mean, one or the other.
So I was just wondering what both of your experiences were, sort of like with the US job market over your lives, and how easy has it been, how difficult has it been, and that side of things.
So I'm going to say it's been difficult, and I've gotten like little work experiences, you know what I mean, that are like 3-month internships. And then afterwards, either A, you get hired, which has never happened to me, or your work experience is over and on to the next step.
That's the thing. Work experiences, DVR likes to try to pull that. And then if the work experience you're working with doesn't hire you, then it was like, well, thanks for the 3 months hoping that I could work here. And although DVR does pay for you working there, but if it doesn't turn out to be that you get hired on, then it's over.
Yeah, and it sucks because I'm like, geez, I was already getting excited. And
so it's basically like free work for that company, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, you still get paid for it.
Yeah, you get paid for it, but that's not always the case. Like if you can like downright like be adamant about, I do not want to do a work experience. I only want a job that's going to be a job.
That's exactly what I said this time. I'm like, look, I do not want a work experience. I want a job. I need a job. I am in my early 30s. I don't want to wait till I'm like, my mid 40s to still be on the same boat.
I can kind of see if the VRs pay for the work experience, why some, like if you were that company that took on work experience people, you can get rid of them after 3 months and get someone else on and just have their salary paid for you. It would be like free work, wouldn't it?
Basically, it's like they get volunteers and it helps them with free help, and then it's over and they don't have to hire you.
Yeah, fine for the company, but for the people actually doing the work experience, it sucks.
It's not. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks. God, I'm so proud of myself. I wanted to say something else, but I stopped myself. Good job.
Well, for me, I grew up, my mom did a licensed daycare out of our home. So I was around kids growing up. And then as I got older, I got babysitting jobs like at nights and on weekends and stuff. So I was very thankful for that. Back then I could see well with glasses. So I didn't have a problem with the parents being hesitant to have me watch their kids, although I could not drive. So they had to drive me to their home and back. But whoever I babysat for, they didn't mind. So that was nice. So I've actually babysat up to 5 kids at a time before. And then once I did become blind, I was able to babysit my nephew and my nieces, and that worked out fine. It wasn't, with my nephew, it was regular. It was Monday through Friday. And then with my nieces, it was every now and then I'd watch the kid for a couple of days because daycare couldn't watch them during then. So she would just have me watch them. But also in high school, I had a hero co-op thing, and I worked in a kindergarten classroom in the afternoon. And I actually worked in the same kindergarten classroom that I went to kindergarten in. So that was kind of cool. But also during then into college, I worked at a department store. It was kind of like it's all who you know, because one of the daycare moms worked at that same department store. And when I went to the interview after that, I guess the interviewer talked to the daycare mom, and she's like, well, how much can she see? Do you think she could work here? And she's like, yeah. And then they hired me. So it really helps to know someone who can put in a good word for you. So that helped. And I worked there for a good 1.5 years. But one thing that happened was that the screens for the registers was like the old school Apple computer black and green screens. And there was one of the registers where it was really faded. So I had a really hard time on that register seeing the screen, but on the other registers, it was like bright. And so I could see sort of far away. I couldn't quite see the buttons, but I memorized them, so no one knew. But then they got new screens and I couldn't really read them. It was becoming harder and harder for me to read them. So I lied and was like, hey, I was wondering, could I start working on the floor? Because I want more experience than just the registers. And they bought it. Then I worked on the floor and was able to, put things away that people exchanged and make the shelves look neat and things. And I did a really good job. And then they changed the UPC labels and they were like practically microscopic. And I did not want to admit that I couldn't see those either. And that was around the time I was going to be moving out of state. So it kind of worked out to my benefit. But I was just like, geez, I was thinking, stop changing things. Every time I get used to something, you keep making it smaller and harder to read. Like, can you just stop?
Wow.
So it was
That's
kind
crazy.
of out to get me. So those were my growing up and stuff, my background with jobs. What about you guys?
During school, I worked at like a supermarket in the evenings, a bit like Walmart, basically, but just on the checkouts again. To get a relatively simple job, I could see a little bit better back then, so I had no issues sort of reading the screens or anything. Apart from if it was really bright outside, because all the screens, all the checkouts used to be right by this huge window, so if it was really bright and it was really glared on the screen, you could hardly see anything. It was annoying. But again, like you said, you kind of memorize the buttons, so it's not too bad after a while. So I did that for about 3 years whilst I was at school and college. And then when I went to university, I just decided I didn't want the job anymore because student loans were going to be paying for me to live the next few years. So didn't do anything for a while. And then when I came out of uni, I could not find a job for quite a time. I actually went to the job centre a lot. It sort of became a running joke with my friends that I would do 6 months in the job centre, like getting the benefits, and then 6 months in a job, and then vice versa. But
wow,
just to repay myself, basically, my benefits, go and pay them back at a job, and then just claim them again. But yeah, I worked like cold calling people to sell websites. That was my first job after uni. I think I stuck that out about a month and I just straight up quit that job, to be honest. Then I worked at a call center. It was basically an answering machine service, but you had to be the answering machine for some reason. People will actually pay people to do this.
Yep. Funny story. I actually interviewed for a job like that, like a telephone operator, call center type job. And yeah, they have not called me back. And in my head, I'm thinking, thank God, because I don't want to be working holidays and I don't want to be working every other weekend. Like, what if I want to, I don't know, go hang out with friends or do something fun with Draco that weekend, have a life. Exactly. Yeah. Or like, I want to spend my Christmases with family and Thanksgiving and New Year's and, play a game of fetch with Draco, something,
I hated those sorts of jobs, but like the people there were always funny because you had your phones plugged in, and essentially when a call came through, like a script flashed up on the screen, and you'd say, "Hello, thanks for calling," insert company name there, because we did it for about 40 or 50 different companies. And then all you'd basically do is follow the script on screen. And then there was 2 shifts as well. You used to have like a day shift and a night shift. And the people in the night shift were just gross. Like you come back in the morning and it'd be like toenails in your drawers. It was
Ew, that is gross.
Oh, no.
Horrible. Or like just
yuck.
Someone had eaten a yogurt and then left like the yogurt and spoon there next to your desk.
Ew.
And no one had been around to clean it. That was one thing I did actually.
That is disgusting.
I was gonna say,
the person that I used to sit next to, I actually picked up one of those dirty yogurt spoons once, and whilst he was on a call, just touched it to his face.
Oh my God, that is funny. I could so see you doing that.
He jumped and punched me in. It was fine.
oh no.
I was on that job. I was on like a probationary period, and I didn't pass it. You have to do like little checks on you and on your calls, and you have to follow certain criteria. And it was like when you took the message, you had to read their name back, even if it was something stupid, like something ridiculously easy, like I don't know, Ben Jones. You'd have to go, "Oh, is that BenJones?" And if you didn't do that, then you'd be marked down. So when I had like my calls marked, essentially, I like failed 6 out of 6. And then I didn't turn up a lot either. Oh, that was on me, admittedly. I didn't turn up a grand deal. Anyway, and then, I didn't pass that probation. So then I just spent like another 6 months again on job seekers allowance. No, what did I do after that? I worked at Boots. Boots are actually owned by Walgreens. So it's a similar sort of thing. They're like a pharmaceutical company. But in Britain, they are massive. And Nottingham, like their head office is in Nottingham. So I used to work in their call centre, the Nottingham head office, and that was for like .com orders and glasses, and it was like customer service job, basically dealing with queries for their loyalty card and things like that. But again, I had a fair amount of time off during my probationary period. So they called me up one day, said, "So can you come down to the office?" which was about 40 minutes walk away. So I came in, I had one meeting and just said, "Mr. Cleaves, I don't think it's really working out. We are not keeping you on." I was like, "Why don't you just phone me for that? There was no need to make me walk down."
Oh, yeah, poor guy.
And then
no, like, poor thing. You go from head boy to this.
No, all my best days were early on in the life, it seems. After that, I classically did another 6 months on the dole again. On the dole is basically just a slang term for getting your employment benefits.
Oh,
okay.
And then I actually got a job, sort of where I work now. It's for a cake decorating company.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I started off working that in customer services, and then I've done various other jobs within that company. And I've worked there for 8 years, and now I run like their wholesale arm of the business. So,
like taking orders and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's sort of taking orders, shipping like large shipments from, well, all over the world, really, like containers and pallets of stuff to and from like Europe and China and the US and things like that.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's all sort of cake-based stuff, and I got a small department of people. So, yeah, it's good.
Mm-hmm. My mom loves to make cake. I was telling my mom about the first series that we did, and she was like, "Oh, so tell me about them. Like, what do they do? Do they both have jobs?" And so, yeah, I said, yeah, one works at a like cake pastry, like bakery type place, taking orders and stuff like that. And the other one works for like, he does like IT, and he's a personal trainer. So that kind of thing.
I've done a lot of weird things. So for me, I have a bit of a strange history. So when I came out of university, I got my first job on the phones. I was selling insurance over the phones, and I was fired within 3 months. I was not good at it. I was too ethical about what we were doing. It was selling life insurance, and I was in my probation period. They called me in the office and they said, "Oh, we're going to play you this call and we want to chat about it." And it was a call that I had with a lady in her 80s, and she had no children, no husband, no one to leave any money to. And the conversation was me asking her if she'd be interested in life insurance. And she's like, "Oh, no, I haven't got anyone to leave any money to. It doesn't matter." And then I just had a nice conversation with her for 20 minutes because she had no one else to talk to. So we just had a chat about her life and what she did on the weekend. And at the end, they said, "So it sounds like you could have sold her some insurance." It's like, well, yeah, but she didn't need it. And why am I going to take her bingo money off of her? Like,
that's your job, to fleece old women. Apparently on the prize, T.
Apparently that's what my job was supposed to be, to rip off old ladies. I just said to them, I can't do that. It's like, I know I've got sales to make, but come on.
That's horrible.
I don't blame you.
You were just, I know. You were just trying to be nice and just be like, "Hey, I'm going to talk to her," even though I'm supposed to like sell her insurance and take her money. But
but I didn't, and they didn't keep me on. After insurance and after I got fired, as Cleves would say, I went on the dole. So I was unemployed for 3 years. And that's 3 years looking for work. Wasn't successful. I did some voluntary work for a sort of a community centre that does respite for families with children with autism and Down syndrome.
Oh, that's nice.
I give you a lot of respect. It's like you are trying to redeem yourself.
Yeah.
After all of those older women, you
I
took
know,
advantage of trying to bring back the good karma.
No, but
I want to do
totally
something good.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed working for the charity. It was really good fun. But that was voluntary. I didn't get paid, and they never had any money like to pay me or anything else. And then one day when I just played a game of cricket, and I was chatting to another visually impaired person, and they said, "Oh well, I got qualified as a personal trainer doing this scheme for the disabled." And I thought, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm just doing this voluntary work. I might as well. So I got qualified as a personal trainer and thought, well, might as well try doing something with this. And there was a gym, and they owed me a favor because of some bad things that happened. They basically said no to my guide dog and said I couldn't be a member because of my guide dog. And
That is so stupid.
it got
That's
really
like
messy.
discrimination, though. That's
Yeah.
discrimination. Like, a guide dog is a reasonable accommodation.
Exactly. And it got very messy, and it ended up with me being in a meeting with the leisure centre manager and their regional manager for like who looked after 100 leisure centres in one meeting. They're like, how can we make this right for you? And it was a real mess. But needless to say, I was a bit known at that point. But I'd recently qualified, and I went there and said, look, can I volunteer in the gym? And because of all the things that had happened, they said, yep, we're not going to say no to you. We can't ever say no to anything you want anymore because we're on thin ice as it is. And I was there for 2 months, and then someone was leaving. I just went to the manager and said, can I have her job? Like, instead of me being voluntary, just give me some paid hours, and then you don't need to rehire for her. And so the manager was like, oh, I don't have to go through the recruitment process. I can just pay this other person who's already here. And then I just started working. And then within 3 years, I was the manager, which I was managing the gym and like the reception area as well. So 2 teams. I ended up doing that for just over a year. And then I moved to Nottingham. And like I said earlier, I got a job. I'm very lucky to get a job within 2 weeks. And that was partly because the job I went for was just an administration job. Any job is a good job. Like, it's tough to find work anywhere. I went for an administration job coming from a senior manager position. And they asked me in the interview, so why do you want to go from being a manager to being an administrator? And I just said in the interview, because I'm disabled and I walked in with a guide dog, no matter what it says on my CV, my resume, you are going to still just see me for the guide dog. And I need to prove to you that I am as good as I say I am. And then they took a risk on me. Well, that was my manager's words, said, we'll take a risk, which I didn't appreciate. She's no longer with the company. She got fired.
She deserves to get fired.
Yeah.
She hired you, mate.
Yeah.
That risk didn't pay off.
I'm still there, though. I'm still there. And I'm doing well. You know, I've done well. I've been there for 2 years now. And I've moved departments and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm a key member of the team. But it was tough. I had to do a lot of voluntary work to get where I am. A lot of rubbish jobs. I know no one in this call can relate. But a rubbish job is doing a exercise class at 5:30 in the morning, 2 days before Christmas, because that needs to be covered. So you leave house at like 4:30 in the morning, you get a coffee, and you have to go in there with all the energy in the world, knowing that you're going to get nothing but abuse from people because they're all tired and hungover. And like Cleve has done rubbish jobs. So we've all done rubbish jobs, like voluntary or otherwise. And it's just being lucky to be in work. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I did code calling for a month, and not for a month, for 4 months. I did code calling for 4 months, and it never resulted into anything. And it was a job that I didn't want. But
I can't believe I forgot this job. I actually had a friend I was talking to from my blindness training that I was keeping in touch with. And I was telling him all about how I was down because I didn't have a job and stuff. And so we had a mutual friend through training also that we both knew it was his roommate during training. And we were all in training together. and he passed along my disappointment. And that friend actually was trying to start up a tactile map business. So he called me and he's like, hey, and he asked me a couple of questions that I didn't even realize where the conversation was going. Like, what would you say your skill set is? Not exactly like that. Stuff like, what are some things you've learned since training? And just really questions that I had no idea. It was just a conversation. And he's like, well, he's like, I'm looking for an assistant and this was an interview and I want to hire you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I worked for him for 6 months. It was supposed to be longer, but funds kind of ran out. But I was very thankful for that job because I was assistant / secretary. I made spreadsheets. I kept up on his logs. I taught myself an app that he was using called Tactio. That was like an app, sort of like a bulletin board, but virtually. And so you can put goals on there and check off the boxes and stuff. I taught myself that. I looked up bus schedules. All that stuff. So, and he paid me well. And unfortunately, it ended, no fault of our own, but I was glad for that. And one of my work experiences also was at a group daycare that I was glad for because I met a friend that I'm still friends with for almost 10 years. And she was very accommodating. Like, I was so shocked because she was the lead teacher and I was only a volunteer. And yet I came in 3 mornings a week, and yet she'd be like, next week, we're doing a camping theme. Is there an activity you can think of that you'd want to do with the kids involving camping? Or do you have any books you want to read with the kids? And it was like, we were always taught that blind people really are kind of not accepted well in the workplace with society. We're kind of looked down upon as to we can't do things. And here's this person who is going out of her way to try to involve me, and not as an employee, but as a volunteer. And I can never be thankful enough for that experience.
If we go from there, like for both of you, what would you say are the biggest hurdles for the blind and visually impaired? Kimberly, you mentioned there that the society doesn't expect the visually impaired and blind to be in work, or if it's frowned upon in some cases. What would both of you say are the main issues for finding and sort of like getting sustained employment in the US?
You have to, some of the time, volunteer first and get your foot in the door and prove yourself before you can get hired on. One volunteer job I had was, I knew it wasn't going to turn into a job, but I wanted to keep that I was still busy on my resume. So I walked to the local library and just cleaned their CDs and stuff. It was a very easy, laid back job, obviously, but I didn't mind it because I could set my own hours because it was volunteer and I could come in whenever, and I just put in headphones and just listen to a book or watched or listened to Netflix and stuff. So I just go there for a couple hours and did that. But definitely a hurdle is that society thinks you can't do things. And so they either won't even consider you if you put on your resume, if you allude to yourself as being blind, or you have to volunteer first and show them that you can do things.
It's sort of similar here, isn't it? There's that sort of stigma around it. What I found is for all my companies, if you go at a sort of basic level, once you're in there and you start to prove yourself, then it's usually easier to find jobs within that company because people already know that you can do jobs. And then they know by that point, it doesn't matter if you're blind or not, you're just a good worker.
They will definitely hire someone who's sighted over you every time.
Yep. And it sucks.
Yeah.
One thing that bothers me is that there's really incompetent or lazy workers out there, people who are hired who do their job really poorly, and they will hire someone like that over me who will bust their butt and work really hard doing that job. And it's just like, how on earth, what's wrong with this picture?
Right, exactly. I want to say that I really, really just want to talk about this because it really makes me angry and it makes me just sad. Like, I want to work. There's people out there who are able-bodied, who do not care, who want to sit on their butts and earn unemployment and just be happy with that. I don't. I want to go and work. Why don't you give me the job? Like, why don't you give us the benefit of the doubt? Like, we just need a couple accommodations, right?
Yeah.
And we're good to go. Like, there's no need to discriminate. Like, just because we have a disability or we do things differently doesn't make us less capable. Or are you gonna, like, honestly, T, I really feel for you because just over the fact that you got discriminated, that's disgusting. Like, it's the same thing that I say about my dog who is in training right now. And yes, if I haven't said this publicly, I actually have a puppy right now who is in training to be my guide dog. So I've had people ask me, like, isn't it going to be harder for you to find a job because you'll have a dog? And I'm like, no, my dog is a reasonable accommodation. I would have to tell my employer, look, I have my guide dog with me. I need him to go to and from work. He needs to be in the office with me because I need to bring him to be able to get to and from work. Like, he is medical equipment. He is a mobility tool. It's like somebody using a wheelchair or an oxygen tank or a hearing aid.
Yes.
A white cane, crutches, anything like that. If you need a service dog, that's a reasonable accommodation. Like, it would be different if someone didn't tell their employer that they had a service animal. I really feel for you, and it makes me angry that somebody would do that to you.
Fortunately, I think a lot of the time, especially in the UK, although the law is there to protect disabled people against discrimination, if you're not given a job, I can leave an interview thinking, I haven't got that job because you have someone who can see, who's going to get this over me instead, regardless of whether I'm better qualified than them or better suited. But providing they don't turn around and say, you're not getting the job because you're disabled, there is nothing I can do about it, even if I think and sort of like have a strong suspicion that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they actually say it, I'm powerless.
Mm-hmm.
I can't prove that, even if I think that's the case. And that's the frustration I've always had.
Another thing that frustrates me a lot is when people are like, oh, but don't you get Social Security? And I'm like, yeah, but it's not enough. Government assistance is not enough. It is not livable. You can't live with just almost $800 a month. Nobody can.
I mean, when it comes to like being in work, like with reasonable adaptations, is the government sort of subsidising that, like even through the states? So you mentioned that with that they can
rehabilitation.
Yeah, so you can get equipment through them, but you have to justify it. I mean, is the state paying for that?
Yes, the state pays. So anything that you ask your voc rehab counselor, the state pays for. So like when Kimberly and I decided to go to blindness adjustment training, also note that we went at different times. Obviously, you have to justify why you need to go and how that relates to finding employment. We both had to fight, and it's hard.
I fought really for hard. 15 months.
And I fought for a year.
The thing that really makes no sense is that it's tax dollars at work paying for this. I'm sure people who are paying taxes would be happy to pay for something that suits a purpose rather than it going for something that is really mundane and just stupid, you know?
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you get the equipment to enable you to get into work. Whereas in the UK, it's the opposite way around. You have to get a job first, and then there's a scheme to get you your equipment when you are working.
Yeah, you needed to work. Like, seriously?
Yeah, well, now my counselor told me, because I asked her for equipment, she's like, yeah, but that won't happen until you get hired.
So that does happen. Like, for instance, if we get a computer job, we get hired and then they'll pay for the JAWS. They're not going to pay for it before we get the job in case our job doesn't have anything to do with computers.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So in the UK, you have to be in work before you get anything. And this is a scheme called Access to Work. And Cleves, you like Access to Work, don't you?
It's terrible. It's a shocking system. I've only ever had to use it once, and that was to get my cab fares paid for during like the dark months, basically, when I used to live at my old flat. Getting to work in the morning on the early shift used to be quite difficult. So I thought, I'd apply to Access to Work. The idea is that they basically just pay for your cab journeys. I said, I don't even need it all year round. I think I only needed it for like 3 months. And it was only one journey because I could walk home in the afternoon because it was still light by the time I'd finished work. Well, that's not too much to ask. So they make you get 3 different quotes from 3 cab firms. Obviously, they pick the cheapest one out of those 3. And then you have to go with this cab firm. And then you pay for it first. And then you submit your invoices afterwards. And then they give you the money back for whatever it is you've spent. The problem is, if you get a quote from a cab firm, that's just a quote. You're on the meter a lot of the time. So by the time you get there, it's a different price to what was quoted. So I wasn't getting the full money back. And also, I had to submit everything by paper, even though, why not just accept emails? You know what I mean? Who's this helping?
I had the same thing where I needed a ride to something involving DVR, and they would only pay for a certain amount per gallon, and I had to pay for it first. And then I needed paper documentation. I needed the receipts, and my driver forgot to get the receipt. He just paid for it on his card, and he forgot all about it. So I didn't even get reimbursed.
Wow.
This is though, isn't it? Like now, if you book a cab or Uber or whatever, and you do it on your phone, then your receipts on your phone. So basically, you got to go through and print out, 5 receipts a week, and then fill in an extra form again, which has to be printed and then physically mailed to them for some reason. Oh, and they don't accept couriers. It has to be done by Royal Mail only. It's ridiculous. And then the amount of times I had to chase it. I had 2 outstanding complaints with them, and then I finally did manage to get part of my money back after about, I think it was 3 months after my original cab journey. And then I got the rest of it about 4 or 5 months afterwards. There's the problem. If you're taking a cab journey every single day and you're not getting the money back for 3 months, you've got to be able to have the money in the bank to pay for at least 3 months worth of cab journeys before you see any of that money back. And I didn't have the money to pay for that. So after about a month of doing it, I just started walking in the dark because I just couldn't afford it.
And that's the problem with Access to Work. It's very old fashioned. And I've recently gone for Access to Work where I needed a new monitor for my job, and I went through all the process. And even though I knew what I wanted, you can't tell them what you want. You tell them what your situation is. You explain why you need the equipment, what the job is, why you need a specific sort of thing. And then even after you justify it, you can't just turn around and say, well, I've researched this for you. This is what I need. They will take the information and they will guess what you need. And they will make a recommendation, and you have no say in that. I knew what I needed. I needed a very wide monitor, 43 inches, that sort of thing. And I knew exactly what one, and it wasn't expensive. And it was just like, this is what I need. And they're like, no. We'll recommend something. And they sent me a 32-inch monitor and said, well, that's what you get. Why did I waste my time? This isn't what I needed. I could have bought this myself. I needed a specialist thing. I told you I needed it, and you just didn't want the recommendation. It's like, come on. That's only when you're in work in the UK. You have to be working, and then you have to jump through all these hoops and all sorts of crazy stuff.
To say you want to get disabled people into work, it doesn't exactly help them, really, does it? It's just not making. If anything, you should be making it easier for disabled people to get into work, not more difficult. Not just. It's an exercise in just saying that they have it. The government can go, oh yeah, look at all this help that we offer to disabled people, but in actual fact, it's ridiculously difficult to get.
And a lot of the paperwork is on your employer as well. So if you imagine you've convinced somewhere to hire you, and you've convinced them that your disability isn't an issue, and you go in there, and then within the first week you say, oh, there's this scheme that will get me all the equipment that I need, then the employer's going to think, well, firstly, you can't do the job like you said you could. So that's going against you. And now I have to do all this paperwork to prove you work here. And it just gets crazy. It's not a good scheme. But if we want to go to something to positive to sort of finish off the episode. So if anyone could change anything and make things better, what ideas do we have for making it easier in our respective areas?
I would say voc rehab counselors and agencies who work with blind people to get educated on blindness. And if they can have like some sort of like, I don't want to say it this way, but I'm going to, like blind sensitivity training, that'd be great. If they did a mini like adjustment to blindness training course, if they learned how to walk with a cane under sleep shades, or just do something under sleep shades, or learn the Braille alphabet or something, make a sandwich under sleep shades. I don't know, something simple, right? If
By the way, sleep shades are blindfold, so to speak, but they only go over
they're
your
blindfolds. They go over your eyes, and that is for you to learn how to use non-visual skills and not rely on your vision, but rely on your other senses. But yeah, if they learned that piece, like a little bit, like if they went under that sort of training for like a little bit, then they would understand how to better help us out.
In order to be a VR counselor of any type in Minnesota, they have, I think, 2, maybe 3 different adjustment to blindness option centers to go to, where they are basically a student and learn exactly like the students do.
Yeah, I actually saw that when I was in training in Minnesota at the training center that Kimberly and I both went to. I went to the same one. I actually saw a counselor like be there for like a week or 2 just to learn what it's like for a blind person to go through adjustment to blindness training and to better understand blind people and blindness. So that was really cool to see. And I wish that other states modeled that.
I would also say that, to answer your question, that money could go outside of the state, that you didn't have to fight so hard to get something outside of the state. And also maybe have them go to a few blindness organization meetings and meet professionals, or have them be required to go to the state convention each year and be able to see for themselves what blind people are capable of. Have some employers do that. That's for the counselors, but have employers do that too. And have big organizations have more opportunities for not just disabled people, but blind people. Like, for instance, I know a while back, Walgreens, they had this thing where the state paid them to hire disabled people. Well, they should have places that they'll pay them to hire blind people, and that they have types of jobs that they can come up with if there isn't a job available in their firm that a blind person can do, and that they can put job announcements out there that the blind can find and apply for.
We could do with a lot of raising awareness in the UK as well, to be fair.
I mean, the one thing I would change in the UK, I suppose, I agree that it'd be great to sort of like give, more awareness definitely, but paying companies to take on disabled people, I think something like that has happened here and there, but it depends on the company. I suppose the thing that I would like to see is through the job centre, through the systems we already have, I would like to see a work scheme where you would have employers sign up for this work scheme so they could train visually impaired and blind people in the skills required by these companies, and then say, if you complete this course, we guarantee a job at the end.
Ooh.
Because I think that's very reasonable. Like if a blind,
I like
visually
that
impaired,
too, would be great.
Yeah, if you can get through the course and sort of prove that you can do the job, then the company can turn around and say, well, we know they can do the job because they've been learning how to do it for free. But then they have to be able to take you on at the end, even if it is just for probation, 3 months to see how you go. And you can do it across the board for all disabilities and all abilities and various things, and just tailor the work to the disability. There are a lot of jobs out there that you have to manage your expectation as a visually impaired or blind person. We're not going to be Uber drivers. There's things we can't do, but there's a lot that we can do, and it's about proving that to the market, like the job market. And if that means courses where they sign up, and maybe the government gives them money for signing up, maybe what it is. But that's what I'd like to see, like a proper work scheme where there are actual jobs at the end, like specialist schemes where there's jobs at the end of it for those who are interested in it.
By us, we have job fairs where people can go and they'll meet with employers, and on the spot they can get hired. They should have those for disabled and blind people.
Yeah,
100%.
What I would say is if you're offered a job, take it and then work it from there. Because you can always find a different job whilst you're in a job, and you're still getting paid at that point, aren't you? And if you start at the bottom, then there's places you can go within a company normally. Just get your foot in the door.
Awesome. It's great to hear your side of it, guys.
I know there's so much more that we can say, but I think we said plenty.
But as always, it's been great, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. This is so much fun, as always.
You guys know where to find us. We are on Facebook and Twitter. We also have a Patreon, so please donate. Kimberly, do you have an email for us?
This is what blind looks like pod@gmail.com.
Please rate, review, and subscribe. And also
don't forget-
follow these guys.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Don't forget to check out Seesaw Podcast.
Yeah. Listener discretion is advised sometimes.
All right,
Awesome.
bye, guys.
Thanks to see you.
All the best.
Bye, everyone.
Wait, don't stop the recording.
No.
I mean, stop the recording.
Thank you for listening to Seeing Things Differently.
Blindness Across the Pond.
With Kay and Cleves.
And Angie and Kimberly.
You can find us on the following social media: seesawpodcast@gmail.com and seesawpod on Twitter.
And you can find us at
Facebook at This Is What Blind Looks Like, Twitter at Blind Looks Like, and you can also email us at thisiswhatblindlookslikePod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
You guys there?
Guys. Oh,
Are
they're
you
muted.
muted?
Okay.
Oh.
Now they
Okay.
are.